All right, Miss Tanya Paluso, we are live, and I have to say, this is my very first initiated live Google Hangout on air, live stream, video broadcast, and I'm so excited with the infamous Tanya Paluso.
Infamous.
And famous. Um, no, I, T, like,
Oh,
I'm so grateful to have you here. This is meaningful in so many ways, and I really want to dive quickly into just the depth of the content because you are such a deep well, and
mhm.
such a just pioneer of this truth-speaking movement. And you have done this through your work with Tribal Truth on a national scale. You've done this through, most recently, your amazing book here. You see, I've got my actual pen right in there because I'm reading it. Open Your Heart. But before we even get into that, I just want to share when Leica invited Genes for Justice and myself to be a part of her film and getting the message of this film of Beyond Right and Wrong and the message of forgiveness out there. I just knew that there was a handful of women in my life that I've been touched by and gotten to play with that I wanted to bring into this movement. And you were not only one of the first women to come to mind, but also one of the very first women to respond with support and with the willingness to get real and vulnerable. And that's who you are, Tanya. Like, that's who you are to so many of us,
Hmm.
is this permission and this space to both own your leadership, but do that in the space of complete authenticity, willingness to share, willingness to get real, willingness to say what many are afraid to say. And so I just really want to acknowledge that. It feels so good to kick this interview series off with you. And so I'm just bowing to you and appreciating you so much.
I'm bowing back. I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm not popping up on the main screen. Is it popping up on yours? I just want to make sure that it's going back and forth between
That piece.
us.
Yes, that little piece, that little control piece.
Yeah, because I just see myself in the bottom. I don't see myself popping in the main screen here.
Oh, you don't?
Is when I'm talking, am I in the main screen?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So then that's fine. We're good.
Okay. Yeah, you and
Yeah,
I think okay.
I'm so excited to be here. And, when you made that offer, it was like, of course I'm going to support. And just because I really believe in the work that you're doing. And then I watched the video and was extremely moved. Feel like they really put together a really powerful documentary that we're showcasing with the series, and then was like, oh my God, I have a great forgiveness story to share. And it's chapter 3 of my book, and it's so interesting because when I wrote it, I then was like, I can't publish this. And so every time I read someone this chapter, because I literally had to convince myself that this needed to be published, I would sob. I would just be crying as I would be reading it for probably the first 5 times. And it's just been a really impactful conversation for me. And what it all comes down to is that it was my story of forgiving myself. And that is where I think that this whole conversation stems from is, yes, we can forgive other people, but can we ultimately really truly find the forgiveness in our own heart for ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, yes. And I feel like that's such a core piece of it, is the relationship with ourselves, and that's so much of why the journey of forgiveness is so critical to our healing. Um, and so I wanted to ask you a little bit about just how did you come to that place of that discovery that both forgiveness was something that you knew that you needed, either for someone else or for yourself? Like what brought you to that point of recognizing that was like really going to be critical in your healing journey?
Mm. Well, the story in the book is about where I forgave myself around the breakup with my business partner, who's a dear friend of yours, and we love her, and she's just such an amazing, amazing woman. So I just want to really say that piece first. Of she's an incredible, incredible woman, and yet I was very resentful of the agreement that we had after we split up with our business partnership. And so there was this pattern that I was able to start to see that actually had nothing to do with her. It was like the pattern of my life where I would go against myself and be resentful. And I would do things that weren't told, like I made the agreement to kind of please and accommodate her, right, at the expense of myself. So it was always, so many of my decisions, I was coming from being the martyr. And I wanted to save the world, and I wanted to save others, and I wanted to look like, I was this great person who was doing people a favor, and then constantly being resentful and upset, and I was just building all this anger inside of me. And I can just imagine how difficult it was for people to want to be around me. But starting to uncover and unravel that this was a pattern of mine, and to start to see how I would be this martyr victim role that I was playing, finally had me come to realize that I couldn't blame her. Like, this wasn't about her anyway. This was about me. And then and starting to forgive myself for the decision that I had made, coming from this place of being a martyr. And because I was beating myself up, and I was sabotaging myself big time, and then I would blame her, but she didn't do anything. And so that was the first piece, is I had to identify that she didn't do anything. There was nothing to blame her for. Stop pointing the fingers out there, start looking within, and then start to unravel that whole pattern, and to start to really see it as my pattern. Sometimes we get so caught in not being able to see ourselves clearly, and to see our own patterns, and to see that, oh, this is just a pattern of mine, right? So yeah.
I'm walking because there's a little bit of a delay, and I want to make sure that what you're saying is also totally synced up with your face. So I'm going to see if that's a little bit better. So I mean, being intimately engaged with both of you during that time, I recall that time so much, and I wanted to see and it's been amazing just witnessing the transformation and the healing, and the, like, from an outside perspective, like almost like a lightness or a lightening that's happened in witnessing that unfold and that unravel. And so I wanted to see if you, like, what the emotions are that you feel around, like, especially with that embodied experience of forgiveness, like what the emotions are that you feel around when you tune into that experience, and now your connection with forgiveness as a tool, or as something that you embody or have access to.
What's coming to mind is, and the way I've been looking at this whole process of mine, was that I had this hard rock, like this hard case that enclosed my heart, and what that hard case was made up of was anger, resentment, and frustration. And so that it was like that hard, contracted, like I think of anger as like this contraction, like the rage. And I'm very familiar with that feeling of rage throughout my whole life. You know, we always like to joke around and say, well, you know, we're Italian. We're, you know, we've got a lot of fire in our blood, right? Like I come from
the Palusas.
We're the Palusas. We have a Sicilian, you know, mafia background.
Forget about it. It's okay.
But you know, I grew up in a household where it was perfectly normal to yell, scream, and express your anger. So so there was this hard shell around my heart, and so the process of forgiveness I like to look at as it's like chipping away at that rock and letting go of that anger little by little. But then it's like, well, what's underneath that? And what was trapped underneath was this river of grief and so much sadness and so much pain. And so the more that I unleashed and cracked open that anger, I experienced a tremendous amount of pain, and it literally felt like system overload, like my system was flooded, and the grief that I was experiencing, I mean, just sobbing for hours on end, and just really mourning and grieving this part of myself, you know, that had become so hard, that was so angry. And then once it was like, okay, now the river flowed and there's no longer a flood, it's like there's a softness that, you know, the lightness that you're talking about, this softness and this lightness, and just this love and compassion, both for myself and for others. So there's just no longer, you know, anything there. It's kind of like, oh, I was mad, you know, like, oh, I was resentful. Like, it's hard to actually even connect with that old feeling because it's just not there anymore.
Right. And oh, Tanya, I mean, I could feel that. Like, I could viscerally feel what you were just sharing. And it's like when you shared that, I like when you're talking about the river of grief, what I felt in my body was like this opening of my heart. I felt tears starting to come in my eyes, and I could feel that feeling of like a feeling of like what it feels like to actually feel and let the emotions pour out. And it's like I got this image when you were talking about just opening, like as you allowed that river of grief and like chipped away, it's almost like chipping away at the dam. Yeah. And then the dam is like blocking everything, and then the river starts flowing, and then there becomes spaciousness inside of the heart to allow the love to be felt. It's like, wow, ultimately underneath of that grief is like a love of yourself, a love of others, a love of relationships, and the desire to feel connected. And that's what I mean, when you shared, I just got that so deeply. Like I can feel the aliveness of that experience for you. And I can feel like where it just emotionally resides inside of me. And so I just really appreciate the way you just shared that.
Yeah, couple things were coming up for me as you were just sharing that, and that is, you know, you've been through a process of really connecting with your emotion and what a highly sensitive person you are, and being able to feel. And there's something that I've learned as well about feeling unconditionally. And you and I talk about, you know, playing the full range of, they're all equal. Like, there's nothing wrong with anger, you know, because you could actually look at it as like anger is that fire, right? And so I've learned through this process of, can I stop directing that anger outward, and can I actually rechannel it within to purify and cleanse myself? Yeah. Can I get angry at the patterning so that I can fully let it go? So I've been able to rechannel and redirect anger in a way that's actually very beneficial and very healing. And so just to, point out to anyone who's listening that I think one of the hardest things to do is to feel unconditionally, because we've been taught to suppress our emotions, to not feel those negative emotions, but that's the only way through them. And I like to say, it's like, it's spiritual bypassing, that it's like, oh, let's just get to bliss. It's like, well, actually, there's like this kind of, chain that you got to kind of go through. You actually need to go through those lower vibration emotions in order to fully, truly experience the bliss and the joy and the love. You can't bypass them. And you've just done that as well in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like emotional freedom is one of the things I feel is my biggest gift. And, well, in our tribe, in our extended tribe too, we'll have a lot of times where we're talking about, like, what are we grateful for, and presencing what we're grateful for, what our biggest gifts are. And it's so amazing to feel in the moment. There's many moments where what feels real for me is my emotional freedom is what I'm most grateful for. And it's like, you're right. I mean, it's not just feeling the bliss, and it's not just feeling the joy. It's like, I'm so grateful to be able to grieve and feel my anger and feel sadness, and like, just, it's so liberating to feel that. And I feel like leaning into, like, you just really put a framework for what happens through forgiveness. It's like almost what's preventing forgiveness is also preventing the experiencing in your body and in your heart of all those emotions, of the pain, of the sadness, of the rage. It's like almost that blaming is like it's like a deflection, so that if it's all out there, then I don't have to feel anything. And that the forgiveness piece is that opening that allows what's real inside to be felt, so that we can clear that channel. And it truly, to me, is like the path of full liberation. And so it's so fun to get to play with you in that space and relate with you in that space, and be stewards of that out in the community, in the mass scale, like across the world, to like feel. And I love that idea of unconditional feeling, because I think that really is another way of saying unconditional love. And sometimes when we say unconditional love, it's almost like it can bring up a judgment of like, I want to, unconditional love sounds like a really good practice, but like right now I'm not feeling what I think of as love. I'm feeling what I think of as grief, or I'm thinking what I feel of as rage. And what actually is underneath those emotions is truly the access point to like deep, deep love. And so I love that. I wanted to check in with you on just, was there any, in terms of the film, like, why do you think it's important for people to watch this film? Why would you recommend people watching this film? Or was there any point in the film that really just nabbed you, that you were like, whoa, that is a message that needs to be felt and experienced?
Well, as you were just speaking, I got really present to that word, and you said it, emotional freedom, and how freedom has been one of my core values, and like my, it's my flag. It's that it's the thing that means so much to me, is experiencing freedom and not being contained and locked in a box. Everything that I do is about creating freedom for myself, whether it's the job that I have and making sure I have the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want, or having that emotional freedom, just being really free. And it's just, I'm a Pisces, I'm a fish. I like to just swim around wherever I want to go. And there's, there's so much freedom when we dive into the darkness, because ultimately it's like the attachment, it's like attachment and fear, right? And if we can actually face those things that we are most afraid of, that we don't want to look at, we can find that freedom. So I feel like, with this movie, of facing something that, you know, and looking at these things, it is just so important. And looking at, you know, genocide and war and you know, the killing that has taken place on this planet. And at the end of this chapter in the book, in my book, it goes from forgiving myself to forgiving you, whoever you is, to then forgiving them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like what really tied it in with the movie, is that it's like this, okay, it's here, and then it's here, and then it's here, right? And like, who is this them? And I think, and I remember one part of the movie where, you know, they're in court, and I think it's the Ireland one where,
Bomber.
yeah, they're angry at him, you know, and they're like, how could you do this? And she's like, hey, you know, and it's like, who is this them that we're making the enemy? There is no them. I am you, you are me. Like, we're all connected.
Mm.
And I love how the movie is helping us like see that. And I talk about this a lot in the book of like, you know, the garbage, like, can we accept the garbage man driver as part of our tribe? Can we accept the murderer as part of this tribe? Like, we're all part of the same family. And you know, so I go through this part in the book where I say, you know, I love you, tribe. I get that you have my back. Thank you for supporting me, loving me, holding me, forgiving me, caring for me. You are my family. You are my tribe. And then I go into the I forgive them. And all the things, you know, it's like I go into the trashing the oceans and killing the innocent and the genocide and poisoning our food and all these things that we see out there in the world that's wrong, that someone else is doing to us. No one's doing anything to us. You know, so, and so I say, I forgive you, humanity. You have forgotten who you are. You have done nothing wrong. You have acted out of fear and scarcity. You struggle for power and have not found peace within. I love you as my brother, my sister, my family, no matter what you have done. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong. I am you. You are me. I am the world. You are the world. I am humanity. You are humanity. I am them. They are me. There is no separation. That's what I love about this movie. That's what I love about what we're talking about here. We're all connected.
So it's so powerful, Tanya. It's like that theme of interconnectedness. I mean, that is, I mean, as you know, that was such a huge piece when I truly got that, especially in the mission with Genes for Justice, which, you know, is one of the beneficiaries of this film. It was that, what does it look like to create a world that's so safe and so healthy and so interconnected that these acts of violence and bullying and killing don't exist anymore? Because once we open up that feeling of interconnectedness and realizing, like what you're saying, you know, that you are me, I am you, I am them, they are me, all that stuff, it's like it's like it takes that do unto others as you'd have them do to you to a whole other level. It's like, no, not even just that, it's like every time I harm myself, I'm harming others. Every time I harm another, I'm harming myself. Every time I harm one of them, I'm also harming my own family and the people I love the most. So there's this feeling, like what you just tapped into and the thread you just tied in, like, hits my heart so deeply, also in terms of in terms of this vision and this work, that I really believe that, again, as our interconnectedness grows, we are all doing together, each in our own ways and our own expressions. And I'm so glad that you really drew upon that thread, because I see that feeling of that creating and realizing and embracing that interconnectedness as truly being the way that we create this world where these different like atrocities, from these huge mass bombings to like even just the little ways that we give each other the silent treatment, you know, the ways that we cut ourselves off and the ways that we put those walls up. I see that interconnectedness being just so key and so critical. And I love what you shared from your book too, T.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So in kind of just beginning to wrap this up, I just wanted to hear if there's any other, just any other message that you'd have around like anybody who's watching this interview, around anything they might be going through or anything that might have hit home for them. Is there anything else? I mean, you've got a wealth of wisdom in your book. You landed on such important themes from the film, and just the way you speak the truth, tell the truth, live the truth in your life. Is there any other kind of final bits or pieces that you'd want anyone watching this to know or inquire about inside themselves when they start to tap into maybe what that block is, or what that might be preventing them from feeling that full range and freedom of emotions?
Forgiveness takes extraordinary self-awareness. Truth-telling takes extraordinary self-awareness, and that has been the first part for me, is really becoming aware of the truth that it's just all about me, you know, like just keep looking within, like where am I responsible? I think that's the key word for me, is responsibility, our ability to respond instead of react, and to keep looking within of like, I cause everything that's going on out there. This is not as a burden, like I'm fully responsible, therefore I need to like go solve the problems of the world, but you know, I am a powerful creator. I create my world, and so I'm responsible for what is going on in my world. And so can I just keep bringing it back to like, I'm responsible, and to live this path of truth-telling and forgiving yourself and others and being aware takes extraordinary courage and strength, like inner strength. And so I think the piece here that I'm really wanting to drive home is to not beat yourself up, and to really acknowledge yourself for the strength and the courage that you, as the listener right now, has already demonstrated in your life. You know, and so it builds on top of that. And so again, the forgiveness is like not beating yourself up anymore, and really acknowledging what you have done already, and that it's just baby steps. You know, I mean, this process for me, the chapter 3 around me forgiving my business partner, was like over a year-long process, you know, and like constantly looking at it and constantly being confronted by it. And, you know, there was the blindness and then there was the awareness. And so it's, you know, it takes time. It's not something that you can just be like, okay, I forgive myself. Okay, I might come back, right? But just that awareness and just the acknowledgement of yourself for doing the work. And so, you know, and I'm saying that because if you're listening to this, you're someone who's probably on this path with us, and you probably are someone who's done some work on yourself already. So just, you know, to celebrate that.
Yeah, I have like a little, I got a little hit of an idea that I want to do just with you and IT, and then also with anyone who's watching right now. So anyone who's watching live, or anyone who's watching this on the recording that we'll be sending out, I'd like you all to just close your eyes for a moment and just put your hand on your heart and just take a couple deep breaths and allow yourself to just feel what's alive inside as you've taken in this wisdom and this insight from Tanya as she shared about her own story and what's come alive in her. And just feel into this word of responsibility that she's closing with. And as you breathe into your heart, I invite you to just feel into one tiny element of your life that you want to claim responsibility for. And maybe it is a interaction or a conversation that you had that left you feeling a little unsettled or out of alignment. Or maybe it's an experience that happened in the last week or even just earlier this morning. Just anything that is alive inside of you that you desire to take responsibility for. And just allow that, whatever it is, to come alive and get real and present. And let it be something small that you can feel and take action on today. This little piece that is asking for you to claim it, take responsibility, and then take whatever steps you need to address and make it right. In Hawaii, they call this forgiveness ritual the ho'oponopono, and it means to make right twice.
Mm.
And so it's part of that is taking the self-responsibility. It's the first pono, the first making right. And so the invitation here for all of us is to just take that tiny piece of responsibility and make right with it within or inside of our relationships. And so just breathing into that. And Tanya, I thank you so much for your willingness to share, your willingness to take all of us on this journey with you, your willingness to pour your heart out into this amazing book. It's an amazing book that I am continually blown away by. And thank you for your support of the Beyond Right and Wrong film and the amazing work that's being done there, and your support of the work that we're doing with Genes for Justice to create more spaces where healing and forgiveness and compassion can take place. Yeah, just so grateful for you, and thank you for leaving me with that piece around responsibility that I feel really committed to actually taking a small action today, and I can already feel what's opening up inside me as I claim that. So thank you for that bit of wisdom that you left us all with that feels really empowering.
Yay. Excellent. So excited that I got to be here with you, and I just love how deep our conversations go. So, it's fun sharing all of this, and thank you, Jess, for what you're doing in the world. I love you and I honor you, and thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yay. All right. Have a beautiful day, T. Love you, and love you, tribe and community. And stay tuned. We'll be rolling these interviews out leader by leader, heart by heart, soul by soul, voice by voice, as we explore forgiveness as a path throughout the month of June. So, mwah.
Mwah.
Bye, love.
Bye.